Hi everybody, my name is Lori Yuill, and I am thrilled to be here today with Dance Source Houston to guide some mindful movement. We'll do a combination of improvisation scores that kind of help us ground ourselves and get us into our space, into our body, just kind of comfortable in our day. And then we'll end this class with a little bit of choreography that will link back to the concepts that we do in the beginning. So let's start with the small dance. This is an exercise that comes from contact improvisation. So find a place in your room, wherever you are right now. It doesn't need to be a big space. This first one is just standing and noticing how gravity works pulling on our bodies. So once you find a little place, close your eyes. And just take a couple of really deep breaths here. Allowing wherever you are in your day to kind of settle and be here, but be separate from this movement practice. And then we're going to shift our focus down into our feet. So keeping the eyes closed, you'll probably notice that there's this very small, tiny dance going on in your feet, these little shifts of weight, where depending on your structure, you might find yourself moving a little from side to side, or front to back, or maybe it's not so equal as front to back or side to side, but a little bit more erratic. You can soften your knees, so kind of micro bend the knees, and actually allow this dance to happen. So those tiny movements are our body rewriting itself. So it starts to fall off a little bit in one direction, and our muscles take over to keep us upright. So now that we've noticed that small dance happening, let's encourage it to go a little bit further. So when you feel your weight shifting into one part of your foot or your feet, let yourself go in that direction a little further than you would naturally, but not quite so far as you fall off your center. Just encouraging the movement to move to the edges of the toes, the heels, the sides of the feet. And as you do that, notice the play and the natural reaction that happens in the upper body. So it might be small, but there's probably a little ripple happening through your spine and your chest. And then let's take that one step further, so you're not only noticing the direction the body is falling and shifting, but now you can direct those little falls. So you can kind of play with where your weight is shifting in your feet. And maybe you're like me, I've noticed that I tend to not shift to the outer edge of my right foot. So I might spend a little time playing there, seeing what it feels like if I do go into that space. And if it feels fun, you can even test kind of your limits. How far can you go in any one direction and still, I was going to say still remain stable, but it's not stable, right? It's how far can you go without taking a step. So you're falling off your center, but not so far that you have to move your feet from where they are. Let that dance settle down. If you've been pushing off to the edges, bring it into a smaller range of motion. And then eventually allow the movement to fade so that you're back in relative stillness. And then blink your eyes open. Regain your awareness of the world around you, letting the sights and the sounds come back in. And let's just take a little walk around. So our feet have been kind of planted in space. Just a small walk to get the blood flowing again and the full foot functioning on the floor. And then bring yourself back to a comfortable place. This next part, we're going to go into a little bit bigger movement improvisation. So the score here is to follow your instincts, follow the thing that it feels like your body needs and wants right now in this very moment. And we're just going to stick with that as the score for about 5 minutes. So if you're feeling maybe a little bit anxious today, perhaps you need some fast, vigorous movement to get some of that anxious energy out. Or if you're feeling a little tired, maybe your movement is more of a stretch, something a little bit calmer. So there's no right or wrong here. You're just sort of listening to what is it that I need right now? What is my body calling for to give it a little attention? Okay, so you can do this eyes closed or eyes open, whatever you feel is most helpful. And just identify that first instinct, that first call to movement or stretch or wiggle, whatever's first calling to you to do. Let yourself move into that action. And then follow that into the next impulse. So this is going to look and feel a little different for each of us. I'm just trying to follow what my body feels like it needs a little bit of right now. So I just came from teaching kids, so I got my heart rate really up. But I need a little softness after dancing on a concrete floor. So that's what my dance is going to reflect right now. So keep going and see if you can follow each impulse to its end. So kind of like finding a period at the end of a sentence. Where does that impulse finish? And the next sentence begin? So that might look like stillness. It may not. It may look more fluid, but you just have a sense in your body of where one thing ends and the next thing begins. So let's stay with this for a little bit longer. And if you have been moving kind of small or slow, take the next few seconds to encourage yourself to move a little bit bigger and expansive in space, with the idea of prepping your body to go into some bigger, more expansive movement. And then let that dance kind of quiet down. Follow it until you find its end. We're going to do one more movement score that connects our breath with movement before we learn a small sequence to put together to finish off this class today. This score is pretty simple, so we'll move on the inhale and we'll freeze on the exhale. And we're going to take this opportunity to, one, connect with our breath, finding this connection of breath with movement. But also, as we're doing that, I want to encourage us to start to interact with the world around us. So that's going to depend a little bit on what your space is. If you're in kind of your living room where there's furniture, you can give yourself permission to use those structures for support, for architecture within your movement. If you're in a bigger space, perhaps it just means noticing what the room looks like, how your movement connects with the shape of the room, the lighting of the room, maybe the sounds in the room around you. Okay, so finding a starting point. And again, we'll move on the inhale and we'll freeze on the exhale. So let's all take one deep breath together. And breathe out. And then moving at your own pace. Moving on the inhale, freezing on the exhale. And in that movement, starting to engage with and notice the space around you. Bring yourself back to stillness. Notice what that dancing did to your breath. So for me, taking those big deep breaths has kind of amped up my heart and my lungs. So I'm a little out of breath now. We're going to shift in the score next so that we move on the exhale and we freeze on the inhale. So let your breathing just come back to kind of a normal pace. And then again, when you feel ready, take one big breath in and out. And with your next breath, move on the exhale. Breathe on the inhale. Let's do 2 more cycles of breath. Moving on exhale, freezing on inhale, engaging with the room around you. And then bring that back to stillness. And just notice for yourself here, if there was one pattern that you preferred to the other. So for me today, I liked the movement that came out when I was moving on the exhale versus on the inhale. And I don't know if that's a normal pattern for me, but I just noticed today, I was like, oh, this feels more juicy, more full, more expressive on the exhale. So that pattern was kind of calling to me a little bit more than the inhale. So the last thing we'll do today is learn a sequence of movement that I've been working on in my classes lately. And when I was building this, I was trying to think of something that would help me feel really grounded. I've been pulled in a lot of different directions this fall, as I'm sure many of you are feeling. And so I was looking for something that would help me kind of counteract that sense of being pulled in all directions. And I also, when I made it, was working in the studio that has these squares on the floor, these kind of panels of wood that are in boxes. So I tried to use that architecture as landmarks, one, so that we could move really big in a really small space, and also as a different way of kind of reacting to the world around myself. So I will do this facing you. You can mirror the movement, or you can choose to transpose it if that works better for you. So I'm going to start at the back of one of my boxes. You can just imagine that you have kind of these structure on the floor. So I'm going to step with my right foot into a big lunge, and then just pour the torso over. Then, since I have the squares on the floor, I'm going to cross my left leg back over that square, change the right foot, and roll up. Okay, so I'll do that once a little faster. There's a lunge, pour, step left, right, and roll up. You do that one more time. Ready, and a lunge, pour, step, and roll up. So now we're facing off to the diagonal, this room, wide parallel stance. You're going to shift your weight into your left foot. Do a little rotation, and then a big push right and left. So I said left foot, you're going to step towards your front foot, whichever one that is for you. Okay, so you came into this roll up, and you shift, rotate in, rotate out, push, push. Last little bit, you push, pour. So this would be the same one we did at the beginning. Step that foot back into a small cross, knee to chest, step back, back, and curl up. Let's go back to the beginning. First part starts with a lunge, pour, cross, step, roll up, shift, front, in, out, push, push, pour, cross, knee to chest, back, back, and curl up. So you can see for me, grounding is getting really deep into my legs and also kind of connecting the arms and the upper body into the floor as well. So let's do just the sequence 2 more times, and we'll take it back after that into one final improv score to finish. Okay, so we're facing the diagonal, and we take a push, lunge, pour, cross, step, roll up, and change your weight. Push, push, and One more time, just a sequence. Ready? And lunge, pour, cross, cross, roll up, and in and out. Push and up, pour, cross over, knee to chest, back, back, and roll up. So the last little thing I wanted to try, and I haven't tried this yet, so this is my experiment today for this mindful movement. I want to take this and connect it back to that score that we did with our breath. So as we go through the sequence, we're going to go through it on our own timing now. And let's just think of the breath there for support. So we don't have to be as regimented moving on an inhale or moving on an exhale. But let's see where it makes more sense in each of our individual structures, our individual bodies, of where to put those inhales and exhales. Okay, so let's go through it 3 times, and we'll just experiment a little bit, each time changing up, maybe challenging yourself to try something new. Okay, so from the beginning. And step, lunge. Step, roll up. And now push, push, fold. Cross, knee to chest, step back. And roll up. So you might notice, like me, that immediately changing the breath changes the timing, it might change the shape of the movement, all of that's fine. You can really play with this, whatever draws your interest to it. Follow that line of thinking, that line of moving. 2 more times. And a lunge. Step, step, roll up. Rotate, push, pour. Knee to chest, step back, and roll up. Let's do that one final time. I'm not going to talk this time, I'll just let us go through it. If you get lost in the movement, improvise, make up whatever makes sense. Just follow the breath and try to keep that connection of grounding, breath to movement, and following your interests. Okay, one last time. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining in this mindful movement experiment. I hope that you've had fun and feel perhaps a little bit more grounded today, or more connected to your breath, or even just more in touch with where your movement instincts are leading you throughout your day. Have a beautiful day, and thank you again to Dance Source Houston for hosting these Mindfulness Movement Wednesdays.